Hey everybody, this is a really short video guiding you through accessing Grants.gov and setting up your workspace for being able to submit a proposal through Grants.gov. Grants.gov is utilized by several granting agencies, notably DOE, USDA. It's also used by NOAA, a couple other ones. So knowing how the platform works, knowing how to actually create a workspace, knowing what's in there would be very beneficial before you think about approaching those agencies. But for Grants.gov, after you followed our instructions and registered in the system, very first thing you're going to do is just go ahead and log in. Now, once you're logged in, the very first place it's going to take you is to kind of your Applicant Center. It's where it holds things like the workspaces you've created, as well as for you to add other people to the organization, manage any of the organization roles, manage any of the applicants, so the people that have said they needed to be added to your organization. But that gets a bit too into stuff that is not going to impact the vast majority of the people. So we're just going to talk about the workspaces. Now, the workspace in Grants.gov is where you're going to put together your proposal. Everything in Grants.gov is actually managed through Workspace, and essentially the workspace is it's a web form for what they used to have for the fillable PDFs. They were kind of cumbersome, they were very unintuitive, and so they built this system. Now, because the system is built off of those web forms, it's very easy to recognize exactly where stuff goes because it's essentially they wholesale copy and pasted the fillable PDF and created some boxes around it. But whenever you are trying to submit to one of the granting agencies for an SBIR or an STTR, very first thing you have to do is create that workspace. Now, you can't really just create a workspace in Grants.gov. The workspace that you create in Grants.gov has to be tied to a solicitation, or essentially to that agency. There's two ways you can do that. If you got linked to the solicitation and it comes up directly with the solicitation information, if you're logged in, there's a button that'll appear up in the right called Apply. For most people, the way you're going to actually build your workspace is first, you have to search for the grant. Now, because Grants.gov is a clearinghouse for a lot of different stuff, it can be very cumbersome to try and search through everything. And one of the nice things is the filters that are built in on the left-hand side here. That'll actually let you filter down to, say, a particular agency. So for instance, if I was going to be applying to a DOE SBIR, I would come down here to agency, and for the DOE program, it's actually out of the Office of Science. So you would select that. And then I have this list here. Maybe I'm not sure which one it is. I mean, it shows up right here. But if the list is rather long for one of these agencies, you can also filter and search through a keyword. So if you put in SBIR, it's going to look for SBIR against Office of Science. So now we search and cleared that out. Now we have the one result. So clicking on the opportunity number will take you to the information, the synopsis, the package. The big thing for you, though, is this button right here called Apply. Hit that button, and it's going to set you up for creating your workspace. Now, it's going to autofill in the federal opportunity number. You don't have to worry about the opportunity package ID, but you do have to put in a filing name here. The filing name here is actually not anything tied to your proposal. The filing name here is just the name for the workspace. So if you ever want to go back, if you ever want to reload a workspace, if you ever want to copy forms over, you want them differentiated, but it doesn't have to be the title of your proposal, doesn't have to be anything descriptive. For instance, let's just say DOE SBIR phase 1. So we're going to create a workspace. And once you've created the workspace, you're going to get to this screen here, which is just a summation of all of your forms. Now, we're not going to go through every single form in here because, again, it's very directly tied to those PDFs. You can kind of just navigate item by item. There's nothing that is really confusing or mystifying about what goes in there. They're pretty good in spelling it out. However, a couple of real quick things. Because Grants.gov is used for a lot of different opportunities and not just SBIR, this system is built for that. So you're going to have a lot of fields in some of these forms that you really don't have to fill out. And it doesn't surface that information all that well if you don't have to fill it out. So what you really want to do is, you see this button here for download instructions. This isn't downloading instructions for Grants.gov. This is actually going to download instructions for that solicitation. For agencies like DOE, USDA, that have a set of solicitation instructions, but then also have an applicant's guide, those are what those instructions are, is the applicant guide. That's the one that walks you through every single box, every single check mark, everything on like the SF424, any of that key information, what you have to do for things like profiles for senior and key personnel. So we always recommend download the instructions and have that open. If you have two screens, have it open in a separate screen, just so you can walk through each of these forms as you're trying to fill them out, because the instructions will be very specific about this box does not apply to an SBIR, or this is the exact thing you need to put in this box. But let's just take a quick look at like what one of these web forms looks like. So clicking on one of these is just going to take you to this interface where you're actually going to put in your information, or you're going to upload your documents. Now, anything here marked with a red asterisk is required, so you cannot submit without an entry in there. And if you come down here, you'll see that really this is fairly intuitive about what you put in there. You know, type of applicant, you're a small business. EIN or TIN number is going to be your EIN or TIN for your business from your IRS paperwork, or from when you created your SAM registration. You had to put that in there. Or for your DUNS, you had to put that in there. Or for your SBC control ID, you had to put that in there. There's not a lot here that is going to kind of confuse you as you move through these forms. Again, they're fairly self-explanatory. The one thing to really kind of be aware of, are things that, again, do not have an asterisk saying you have to put something in there, but don't apply to SBIR anyways. Particularly for like DOE, there is no pre-application. USDA, there is no pre-application. Actually, many of the SBIR agencies that use Grants.gov, you're not going to have pre-application, things along those lines. Now, when you're done filling in the form, you can always save it. Or one thing you'll want to do is click the check for errors. This will go through and it'll actually map through everything that it expects to have an entry for, the type of entry it expects, and it'll show you those errors. Anything in red here is going to be critical. That means you're not going to be able to submit if that error exists. Now, the good thing about the check for errors is when it comes up here, if you're not really sure what it's talking about, these are actually hyperlinks. Clicking on it will take you to exactly where that error is popping up for you to actually solve it. And whenever you save any of these, it's going to go through quite a struggle a lot of times because it is an older system. So it's just going to give you a pop-up and said it was saved successfully, and then you have the option to close it. Now, you're always going to get this message whenever you close a form asking if you want to unlock the form. For most people, the unlocking the form doesn't really do anything. The reason that unlocking a form would be something that you want to always do is if you have multiple people in the organization that are trying to work on the same workspace, that are trying to work on the same proposal package. If person A is editing the form and they save their work, they close it out, and they don't unlock the form, maybe person B comes in and they go, oh, well, we have to update this field, and they go to try and access it. They cannot do anything on that form until person A logs back in, unlocks that form. So probably always a good idea just to leave the forms unlocked. For most people, not going to matter. Most people are probably just going to be one person going in there, uploading information, making sure it's right. But if you do have a larger team you're working with, just be aware if a form is locked, then that means that person that locked it is the only one that can touch it until it is unlocked. Now, each of these forms, kind of has their own thing. The big thing I want to cover really fast, though, is the optional forms. If you are working with anybody like a research institution, you're going to have a subaward. Now, you have your subaward documentation from the RI, you have their budget, you have their budget justification, and you see this little thing here for your budget attachment forms. You go, okay, great. So you click on that to add the optional form, and now it's going to turn it blue. Now you click on the blue hyperlink because that's how you've accessed everything else, and you're going to get, just as a really quick aside, these jump cuts you see, you're not missing anything. It's literally me sitting there for sometimes 60 to 90 seconds waiting for the page to load. Keep that in mind with Grants.gov, is if you're in there, maybe you're running up against the deadline, don't be. If it's through Grants.gov, all of these take an extremely long time for a page to load. Anyways, off my soapbox. Now, when you click on that for your subaward budget, you're going to see this, and you go, well, what is this? There's nothing in here. There's no information for me to put in. There's no attachments. I'm kind of confused. And that's because this is really just a summary of what you've put in there. There's nothing for you to edit here. And then you go, okay, but I don't understand. Where do I put my subaward stuff? It's in this form, but you don't access it through that blue hyperlink. To access it, you have to actually click this button here that says Go to Subforms. And you're going to get this. That's empty because you have to add the row. Now, when you add the row, easiest thing to do for these subforms is name it the subawardee. Okay, so once it actually loads, you're going to click on the name here. And then once this form loads, now you can come in here, and this is where you're actually going to put the information for your subaward. So the organizational DUNS, which they should be supplying to you. If they didn't, you need that. Name, what type of budget it is. This is a subaward budget, so it's a subaward / consortium budget type. And then start date, end date. You fill this out just like you do your sub or your budget, but with the numbers they gave you, all of the details, and then at the bottom here where you attach the justification. So let's close out of this, prepare for another jump cut. Oh, that one wasn't actually too bad. So that's really just kind of how to navigate through these workspaces to get your proposal ready for submission. Now, whenever you are ready to submit, it's going to give you an option. The option isn't active right now because I still have all of these. I have an in progress and in progress, and I have no information here. Now, any of these that are optional, you don't have to have progress on because it's optional. The ones that are mandatory, they have to say complete. The way you make it complete is you fill in all those required forms, you check it, it'll come up and say it's good, you close it, then it'll say here in green rather than in progress, it'll say complete. Once all of these mandatory items have that green complete, this button here, check application, is going to light up. Now that's going to check the entire application. Pretty much what it's going to do is go through here and say, okay, these individually say they're green. Let me check this everything as a whole. Once that is ready, you're able to click the sign and submit button. When you click on sign and submit, there's going to be another screen that pops up just asking, are you sure that you want to submit this? It's going to ask, do you have authorization as the AOR, authorized organizational representative, to enter into a business agreement on behalf of the business. That's kind of how these are worded. Then you're just going to click OK and submit on there, and then it's going to be submitted. Now, if you ever need to get back to your workspace, because you're probably not going to sit here and go through all of these forms, everything, put in all of this information, just kind of in one fell swoop. If you decide to do that, God bless you, that's a lot of time being in Grants.gov. You're probably going to put in some information, get frustrated with how the system operates, how often you have to wait for a form to load. You're going to go off, maybe do a couple shots, come back, and finish stuff off. So when you go to get back into your workspace, you go, well, I should know how to do that. I go into my applicants and I go to Manage Workspaces. And when you click on Manage Workspaces, it shows up with an empty screen. And you go, it didn't save any of my information. What am I going to do? I'm going to have to restart this all over again. No, it's waiting for you to search. So you can either come in here, fill out these based on what you know, what you remember, and then click search, or, pro tip, just hit search. And it's going to load all of your workspaces. And then you can see all of your workspaces here in Grants.gov. And to get back into it, I'm just going to come over here and you're going to click Manage. That'll launch you back into the workspace. Now, if you need to copy the workspace, say you submitted this round, you got denied, but you got some really great feedback, you're going to refresh it, you want to resubmit, you can actually copy these old workspaces to a new package. Now, you're going to have to know the opportunity number of that new solicitation. It's not going to preload that for you. So go find that opportunity number, paste it into there, and copy the workspace. Going to make your life a lot easier. So it's going to copy over all of that basic information, all of the required information, all of your checkboxes on, or I guess it's a bubble in this system, all the bubbles in your SBIR/STTR information page, all of the top fields in your SF424 that are just business information. I'm going to copy all that straight over. There's not going to be that much more you're going to have to do to get that proposal ready for submission. But that was just a really quick kind of walkthrough about navigating Grants.gov, using the system, and some of the things that may seem a little strange or some of the things that are kind of confusing. Overall, it's a really good system for, aside from slowdowns, but it is a really good system for getting information in there, for filling it out correctly, for knowing what you have to fill out. Doesn't load a lot of stuff that you don't need, like Fastlane. It's pretty direct and to the point. Again, though, on those forms, there might be fields that you can skip over. So have those instruction packet or instructions open in a screen next to you, maybe in the same screen, whichever way you need to work it. Have those open as you're going through those forms. Make your life a little bit easier. But that is our navigation for Grants.gov. We hope it was informative, and we hope that you can utilize it for being able to more easily submit a proposal package. Thanks.